In today's video, we're going to do an exercise to try and build this card on this apple.com website. And this is a card of the iPhone 17e. So we want to try and rebuild this in Divi 5. So what you're going to be learning throughout this process is how to also use advanced features in Divi 5. So the first thing, of course, we need is the picture of the iPhone. So I headed over to unsplash.com. So here I looked for an iPhone and I saw something similar to this. And then I took this image, downloaded it, and headed over to canva.com. So over here in Canva, we are able to go in and remove the background from the image because, of course, here on the Apple website, it is a white design. Okay. So once I downloaded it, I headed over now to my website, and this is where I get to show you how to design this. So the first thing we're going to do here is to go in and add 3 columns. Now, the reason why I'm adding 3 columns is just to make it easier for me to see the size of the actual card. So in here, the very first thing we need is a group. Okay, so we're going to set up our group, and in that group, we're also going to need another group. Okay, and you'll see in a moment why this is important. Now, in that second group now is where we need to start adding our text. So the first one here is going to be a text module. So let's go ahead and do that. The second one is going to be a heading. So we're going to click here on this plus button and add our heading module. And then the next one is going to be a text module. So let's search for text and add it. So these are our 3 modules. So if we take a look here, we are pretty much mimicking this. So it's 1, 2, 3. Actually, we need 4 of these. So let's go ahead and add 1 more. So we're going to come over here and add 1 more text module. Excellent. So now that we have the text modules, we need to go in now and populate with our text. So the first one here, I think is called pre-order now. So let's go ahead and type that. Okay, so we have pre-order now. The next one here is going to be iPhone 17e, I think. So let's go ahead and check it out. Yes, iPhone 17e. So we're going to type it over here. Next, we're going to add this text which says feature stacked, value packed. And then finally, we have this pricing here. So let's go ahead and add that. So it's this one here that we need. Making sure it's selected. We're going to type it in. Okay, so we have all our text now. But you know, the way we've structured everything here is quite difficult to see exactly where we are with these groups. So what I'm going to do is to select the main group, because as you can see, there's 2 groups here. So I think it's this one. You just have to try it out. Let's add our image because this is where our image is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and add my image. So I'm going to hover over here and see if the image is inside. Well, it's not, as you can see here. So let's hover over here again and let's add our image inside. Let's see if this one here works. There we go. So now you can see if I hover over the groups here, we can see that everything is inside this group. So now we can delete this. Another way of making sure you're doing the right thing with the groups is to come over here to your layers. So that way you can see your groups. So this one here is the outer group. See that? The main group. And then this one here is the group which have the text, and then the image is below it. And that's exactly what we need, because over here now on the main group, we can go in like that, right? And then over here on the design tab, we are going to go into spacing and add our margin. So I'm using a design system, by the way. It makes it easier for me to add all my spacing. So I'm going to go ahead and say all medium. So now I have a padding around everything. Again, while this is selected, I'm going to come over here to border, because I'm going to need to add a border radius. So let's go with small, and we also need to add a border of extra small. Okay, so now we can see the border around it, and we are getting quite close. Next, we're going to come over here to this image and add our image. So I'm going to come over here to content. So the reason why this image had to be on its own is because we need to use our flexbox to separate the two. So now you can see our image is in place and things are looking very good. So at this stage now, you're looking at this thinking, okay, so the text itself, does it look the way it's supposed to? Well, not there yet, because we need to go in and stylize this and make sure it has the right sizes. So I want to start with the pre-order now. Now, as you can see on the Apple website, the pre-order now, it's all caps, right? So I'm going to go in and add the style that I have in my design system. So I'm going to making sure that this is selected. I'm going to make this an eyebrow. So I'm going to go in and set my K eyebrow like that. Now at this stage, I can actually go in and remove the border. The size, the font weight. So I can go in here and say regular. Okay, just to bring it down a little bit. In fact, maybe medium. Let's have a look here on the Apple website. Okay, right. So we're going to go with that. Now with the color, I'm going to go to my variables now. Now, again, in the design system, I'm able to go into the variables because all my colors are set. So the color I'm going to add here is the warning color here. Next, we got the iPhone 17. In my case, I put iPhone 17X. So I'm going to select it, and this needs to be set to heading 2. Okay, excellent. Now, moving on, we are going to need to add our text here for this feature packed and value packed. Okay, so that is going to be my normal text. So I'm going to go ahead and select that like that. And then over here now, I'm going to set this to my body text base. Now I can see here that it's not fitting in. That is because these columns are not the right size. So that can be fixed soon. So I think I'm going to leave that as it is. And then of course on this text here, I am going to make this text small. So I'm going to go to K text small. Okay. Now, do I need to go extra small? Let me just take a look again. Yeah, I think we can go with extra small. So again, I am going to select this and try extra small and see how that looks like. Okay, I think that's fine. So I'm going to go with that. And then over here on the letter spacing, I'm just going to, just remove that, set this to 0 and hit enter. Okay, so far so good. The next thing I need to do now is to make sure my spacing here is correct. So you need to make sure you select the right group. So this is the group with all the text. So with that selected, I'm going to come over here to my layout and set this to gap 0. That is going to remove all the spacing. So now let's go in and re-enter my spacing. So I'm going to come over here. Now, because I'm working on a card, we need to be working with small spacing scales. So over here on spacing, I'm going to set this to extra small. Okay, that should work. Oops. See, this is paragraph all. I need margin top. So I'm going to go down again, margin top, extra small. And then above here, I think that's going to be extra small as well. So I'm going to go to spacing and set this to extra small. Okay, so far my spacing now is looking great. The next thing I need to do is to make sure that this image here is flash on the bottom here. So I'm going to select my group settings again. Okay, and then over here on the spacing, I'm going to expand this because this is from our preset, from our design system. So I'm going to detach my top and bottom. And then here is where we need to change things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over here and click on insert dynamic content. Okay, so you can see there's several sizes, but of course the sizes that I have here are not the ones that we need. So I'm going to go in and remove the variable. Okay, and then set this to 0 pixels like that, hit enter. And now my image is flash with the border, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so let's get rid of our layers here because our design is almost getting there. So back over here, let's just take a quick look and see. You're right. See, so my rounded corners here, I can see that they are more than what I have. So let's go in and fix that. So I'm going to select my group settings. So here you can see we have border radius small. I'm going to go with medium. Again, I'm going to go in and add my preset like that. So I think that is looking much better with my medium. So what I'm going to do next is to change the color of this border. So again, I'm going to go into my border radius. Now, what you're going to find exciting here is I already have my colors. Oops, did I choose the wrong one? Okay, it's this one that I need. Okay, so with that now, I am going to go in and set my border color. So always click on this little icon here. This is where the variables are. So now you can choose the version of gray that you want. So let's try gray 200. Okay, let's make it a bit lighter. So we're going to undo that, go back in, and we're going to try gray 100 because it needs to be very subtle. So let's take a look here again. Let's see something that's quite close. I think that's fine. So the next thing we need to do is to add a drop shadow. So while I have this group selected, we're going to go to our drop shadow and we are going to, okay, let's have a look here. So this one here is opened. Okay, so for our box shadow, we're going to go with small. Okay, it's very subtle. You can see that. The next thing I need to do now is to come over here to my section settings and change the background color and set it to a light gray. Okay, so here I'm going to go to my variables again and choose a light gray. I'm going to start with gray 100. That's a bit too much. You can see that's not working. So let's go in and set this to gray 50. There we go. So I think we've got it now. But as you look at my card here, it doesn't look like the Apple one because the Apple one is white on a gray background. Okay, so it's very important to have these gray backgrounds, okay, in design. So let's go back in and go into the group settings because we need the main group and change the background color. So again, I'm going to come over here, come all the way down. We have white, select that. And now we have our card. But as I'm looking at my card right now, it is really quite thin. Okay, so we need to make sure that it's not using this grid that we get by default from Divi 5. So what I normally do is I would go in, select one column. Okay, so from that one column now, I'm just going to drag this over to that one column. Drag it like that. Oops. Okay, so there we go. So duplicate it a few times. So one. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to come over here to the row settings. And then over here on the column, make sure you select the column. And then over here to the top, I'm going to set my grid to auto grid. So now you can see they're side by side. The spacing here is now much better. Again, if we look at the Apple website, you can see that our spacing here is really good. Okay, the spacing is is definitely much better. Okay, so with that now, I can expand my row and make it a content row, because currently it is not a content row. There we go. So now we have our cards. All I have to do at this point now is to go in and change these images. Perhaps maybe for this one here, I would need to add this new MacBook Neo. And then I'll need to do that for the MacBook Air and so on. But as you can see, this will be the process of how we do it. Now, if you see that, okay, you may want to add more padding around your design, you can just go in here and increase the padding around it. But pretty much this is the process that you have to go into create this card. This is going to be a really cool way of designing our cards in Divi 5, and as you can see here, the spacing here is perfect and the grid system is also looking great. As I mentioned, I'm using the design system KrafterPRO for this, and if you're interested in that and you want to save yourself time to creating your own design system, you can go ahead and purchase it. The link to that will be in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.